Our next panelist is taking on the topic Inspiring Action, Collective Action. He is Michael Glade, the Senior Director, Water Resources and Real Estate for the Molson Coors Company. Please welcome Michael Glade.
Thank you, Rob. It's a real pleasure to be here. And this is almost more of a summary review. I gave a similar talk 2 years ago in Cape Town, and then I was asked to give another talk in Rio de Janeiro and today. But the one good thing is the title's changed. As Rob mentioned, it's Inspiring Action, Collective Action, and really those go together. And the last time I spoke, it was the trials and tribulations of a watershed, and it was really focused on the litigative and investigative status of the watershed. So I'm going to talk a bit more today about how we are making progress. So I'm going to quickly go over our global water strategy, and then in the collective action, again, my focus, I'm going to talk about how it was needs-based and why it was needs-based and really required within the watershed, how employee engagement has played a critical role, that we can't really stop them now, and what I mean by that is we're really gaining momentum within the communities and within the company. Our friends, our growers, I'm going to quickly throw in a word about how we're engaging the largest part of our water footprint, and that's our barley growers, and talk a little bit about an India partnership. And I guess I apologize as I've gone through that. Some of you may not know that Molson Coors is a brewer of beer, and I apologize because we're just now working with Cobra and Iceberg within India. So I'm not going to get into detail on our global water strategy, but what I will say is it's been nice that it's a strategy we've had for over 3 years, many times, and I've been involved in situations where you'll have strategies of the year and then they go away, but the good news is we're continuing to implement our water strategies. I'm going to focus on collective action. So when I said it was needs-based, is that really gets around where I'm from in Colorado within the USA, water's a property right, and that really creates attitude issues when it comes to collectively working on the challenges around water. And those attitudes are, it's mine, what's mine is mine, it's not yours, I don't want to talk about it, it's none of your business. The competition for water is great. Egos get in the way. There are those that don't want to. I think we already heard a speaker talk about trying to get the local groups together is more challenging than national groups and local groups, and that's true. There were a lot of hurt feelings from past, and people wouldn't get together. And then litigation was always the resolution, which really is no resolution in many cases. So the beginning came when a group of individuals sat down and noticed that we were all spending more money on lawyers and engineers creating reports that did not help the watershed, that did not help the ecological needs of that watershed, or really the users of the watershed. In 1993, they created a group, and this is highlighted in the guidance document through the CO Water Mandate as one of the case studies. And I'll also give a website address if you want to read more. But it really started out with monthly meetings and just getting together to discuss the challenges. It did involve a group of diverse stakeholders, which range from municipal, agricultural, and industrial users, but also included environmental interests and nonprofits. So it was very important to have the voice of all of the stakeholders involved in sitting at the table. In the very beginning, they started collecting water sampling. We've also heard people reference the need for data, the need to, what are you going to address? What are the problems within the watershed? We shared that data openly with both government and also the private industry, and then established some best management practices, some high-level, very quick-hitting best practices. Did a wetlands inventory to get an understanding of the ecology that was being impacted. Applied for government grants to look for sustaining this initiative, and then produced an annual report, which held the group accountable, but also shared the progress within that watershed. It was also important that the group quickly noted that they needed to execute projects within the watershed. And this is a challenge, at least in the U.S. The challenge was that if you implemented a project, you became responsible for basically the impacts of that project, whether they were positive or more, in this case, could be negative. The Environmental Protection Agency, a federal agency within the U.S., provided and allowed this entity to become a Good Samaritan entity, which means that they could act in good faith to improve the watershed without fear of retribution or lawsuits against that entity. This allowed the people that are involved to all provide resources without the fear of reprisals or lawsuits, which we thankfully have not realized to this date. And so they do execute projects on water quality, real projects of cleaning up orphaned mine sites, which are things like gold and silver mining in the area, stream bank stabilizations, areas that are basically have not been cared for. So in addition to the technical side, it's been very important within this watershed to engage the community, both from a general community standpoint. And I have a few examples up here. Within the museum, one of the museums in one of the towns, there's an exhibit on the importance of water quality and the watershed itself and how it provides and sustains many different facets of the economy, ecology, and what have you. It provides flow data. We provide flow data so people have access to what the water availability is within the watershed. We have a watershed festival which engages families. And then we partner with like the National Forest Foundation and actual do projects. The example on the screen, and I apologize, some of this is hard to see for those in the back, but there's a fence that's being installed to limit access to sensitive areas. Something that I have not provided in the past is something we call Arbrew within the company, because what I'm finding is how important it is to engage members of your company that go beyond the sustainability, the people with the sustainability title, the people with the water title and environmental titles, because you can't do it all. There's so many challenges out there. So as a company, we have instituted something called Arbrew, and it's really a cultural process where we're engaging our employees, telling them who we want to be, how we want to do things. And this goes beyond the environment, but it really has provided me with a platform to talk to our employees. You can see in the bullets here, the focus really is to activate the activists. So what I found, and I'll give some examples of that, is that people within the company, there are those that want to be involved, but they are told it's not your job. Well, now what we're doing is we're allowing them to be engaged and involved. And in fact, they're allowed to take leadership roles when it comes to engaging their community. And this applies across the globe, whether it's in Canada, the U.S., the UK, Europe, or India now. And it's also important, Arbrew, in storytelling, in making it very real for people, rather than just provide data or charts or graphs, which are important, and we do that as well. It's very important to tell stories about our experiences and how that applies to them, and how that makes it very real, whether it's someone that's on the packaging line on the floor, or whether it's someone with a PhD that's in the brewing process. And then it's also important, as that Tata does, where they have the CEOs get together, it's very important to see that our leadership is engaged and supportive of these initiatives. So they go out, whether it's through this process or whether it's through other engagement activities, they are talking to the people across the board from floor to ceiling. I gave an example of what we've done in the U.S., but the neat thing is that within Tadcaster, within the U.K., the group has gotten engaged. In fact, they're with our friends at Heineken, they're also involved in Tadcaster, in engaging the community, initiating some of the programs and processes that we've used to improve the watershed. And when I say you can't stop them now, this is a group that has really embraced very creative ways of engaging the community, engaging our employees. I have an example of a duck race, just where they could engage families and have picnics and discussions about the importance of the watershed. And it was important. This happened at a time when they're experiencing severe drought. And this is from a group that initially, when I approached them, told me, don't worry about us, we have too much water. And then within a year's time frame, their boreholes were being drawn down, and they thought they might have to shut down operations. So they're now engaged with the environmental agency as well as locals on how to address those issues. And the storylines, the neat thing about the storylines that I've provided here from Tadcaster is it really involves the people of the brewery. It doesn't involve just our CEO. It doesn't involve myself with my title. It involves the people on the ground that are making a difference there, and that's very important to me and to our company. And then I talk about momentum. I guess this is good and bad news. The neat thing is I get emails almost on a weekly basis now of someone that's executing another activity. The good news is that they've moved on beyond me. The bad news is sometimes I'm not aware of the activities when people tell me or send me another email about what are you doing in that location. But again, this is only to summarize the importance of engaging your employees and your communities, because I get emails, and some of these photos are community members and not employees. Very, very quickly, I'm going to talk about our growers, our barley growers, just how important it is. We've heard that today, and I'm sure you'll continue to hear that in the meeting. I think we have some focused discussion around it, but 90% of our water footprint is within our barley growing operations. So it's a large risk for us. And I'm just going to very quickly talk about how we engage our long-term partners. Many of these, we've had generations of families that we've been involved with and personally know. So we're really reaching out to share best practices and also reduce their risk, which ultimately reduces our risk. A few examples. Again, I have a website. You can look these up if you have an interest or see me afterwards. But we have a demonstration barley farm in Miller Coors, which is a joint venture with SAB Miller in the U.S. And we have a demonstration barley farm where they looked at water reductions. And one of the challenges we have from a corporate side is I'm always told, well, if we spend the money, what's the return going to be? And I'm sure there are many of you out there that have heard that as well. And the good thing about this project was that it had a water savings of 20%, it had an energy savings of 25%, and it had a 3-year return on investment, which is nice. It's something that needed to occur anyway, but it was very good to talk to our CFO and let him know that it did have indeed a return. In Texas, we have water as a crop. That's where, rather than just look at water as a resource, we've asked our growers to look at water as a crop and treat it and respect it just like they do their crops. And as you think about that and reflect on that, you can see how that would apply, whether it's pesticides introductions within your water supply, whether it's sediments introductions within your water supply. You look at it a bit different. And then we have a barley process where we're engaging the growers and allowing them to talk to our scientists about how to sustain or develop different hardy varieties of barley. Leaf in the UK is I'm getting short on time, but they have Simply Sustainable Water. It's a fairly simple pamphlet that's online as a PDF if you want to look that up. But this is, again, a partnership with the growers in the UK and really just establishing some basic good practices and getting them used to doing things the right way. I didn't want to go through the presentation without recognizing Water for People. It's a group that is in India, and they're in the Shohar district now in the state of Bihar. And we will be partnering with them on some initiatives. We're just beginning to kick that off. But it's very important. They're actually out of Denver, Colorado, so it's nice to be able to see them frequently. But we've been involved in the World Water Corps, and we will be involved hopefully right around our brewery operations in Beta. And it's something that I'm very proud of. They work on sustainable solutions. Hopefully most of you have worked with them or run into them in some shape or form in your daily operations. So the common themes from my presentation are engaged people, common goals for shared rewards, open communication and transparent disclosure. That's things I've focused on in the past, so I'm not going to focus on today, and really engaging, involving, and inviting diverse stakeholders. So thank you very much.